Yeah, I believe in you. I don't believe in lucky sevens. I'm not sure about my next, but I know I believe in angels. I believe in happiness.
Hello, and good evening. I'm excited to be back and live. And please, everybody make sure that you subscribe. Go over to YouTube and ring that little bell, and you're never going to miss a show that has been uploaded. This is the only place where you can catch us live. You can ask all your questions. And I just love that you do like it and you share it and you ask the questions. And we just have the best audience. So thank you so very, very much for just being you. I am back. We had a nice little vacation and I came back with a Mickey Mouse virus. So here we are, and I'm feeling great, and I know that you are too. So I would love to give a shout out to our sponsor this evening, which is None Energy and Water Flavoring. They are amazing. And let me tell you, I'm going to take you down a road of a little story of mine. I always have my pre-workout, but my pre-workout has been changing. And for a long time, I was doing Pure Lift, which is also another sponsor of the show, and None Energy. I just forgot it. I left it at home and they had it at my gym. So I was able to get some None Energy tablets, and you just pop them into your water and you shake them up, and they're so delicious. Not a bitter taste at all. Their flavors are really nice and smooth. This one that I'm holding is wild berry. And then we have, mango orange, if you like those types of flavors. Nunlife.com. That's NUNLIFE.com. It is None water flavoring with 80 milligrams of caffeine and only 10 calories in each tablet. So much flavor. Absolutely packed full of flavor. 80 milligrams of caffeine. Not a lot of people know exactly how much caffeine is in a cup of coffee, but that is a fair equivalent. It's going to be about 80 to 90 milligrams of caffeine in one cup of coffee. So that's great. I mean, just one tablet, it's not overpowering, and you get your B12 and B6 vitamins. That I live on, let me tell you. If any of you are midlife like me and you're starting to feel that afternoon slump, you've got to get those B vitamins and make sure that you have plenty of them, because they're really going to keep you going. Get 25% off now with code NUNSPORT25. That's NUNSPORT25. Obviously. So head on over to None Life and enjoy some None Energy. And like I said, I found it at my gym. They are available everywhere, and they have been a wonderful sponsor for many years now. And in the beginning, of course, you could find everything on Amazon. You can go over to None Life, but now I'm finding them, I mean, like I said, in my gym. I believe they have them at Walgreens. They even have them at Home Depot. So make sure you look around. I've seen them at Publix in the Southeast region. So we have Publix grocery stores. They're there as well. All right, everybody. I cannot wait to get into an interview, which I have to say I am a little bit nervous because I know nothing about what this man's life has been in the sports world. I enjoy sports. I love a hockey game. Why do I go? Because I want to see them get into a fight and rip off their jerseys. That's what I want. I love baseball. Why? Because it's poetic. Do I know anything about it? Not at all. All right. So Jerry Trupiano is connected with us. He is a St. Louis native, world-renowned multisport sportscaster. There's no doubt that you've heard his voice if you watch sports at all in the past couple of years. Jerry Trupiano is the consummate play-by-play man. No one in the business is better at calling a baseball game than Jerry. He's smart, quick-witted, laser-sharp, and excitable in all the right places. Quoted by Jim Nantz of CBS Sports. One of the best announcers in the game, Jerry Trupiano is accurate, a hard worker, knowledgeable, and a great guy. Any team would be lucky to have him. And that was quoted by Joe Buck of ESPN. Without any further ado, Mr. Jerry Trupiano. How are you doing, Jerry?
Concerned about the Mickey Mouse virus. Does that mean you have like an insatiable desire to have cheese or what?
No, I wish. I do love cheese, but no, it's just being on a cruise ship with a bunch of little kids.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah. But you know what? That's over. I'm feeling great. Thank God for
you. I've got to confess. I pride myself, having been in this business of assessing talent and having conversations with scouts or managers or coaches, general managers. I think I'm pretty good at that. I have misjudged you. When we first met online, I judged you as the soccer mom. But just nothing wrong with being a soccer mom. But I was going to say you're the hardest working woman in show business. You might be the hardest working woman in the world. You've told me your schedule a couple of times. I take a nap after just reading that. Slow down, kid. Slow down.
It's a crazy schedule, and it was a hard one for me to get used to. After you have one child, you get used to that schedule. It's kind of normal. Two, there's a little bit of balance. I have 5. So by the time the youngest one was born, I was just like, this is chaos. I mean, there is no rest at all. So now, I've been a mom for 23 years and this is just my life. Like, oh, doctor's appointment here, this there, that there, and you do all of them.
5 kids, you can apply for an NBA expansion franchise.
I know, right? All right, Jerry, I want to ask you about how you got started within your niche of being a sportscaster for the specific sports that you have been a sportscaster for. Was this like a childhood dream of yours? Or how did it begin?
Yeah, the honest truth is, growing up in St. Louis, we had the best duo of baseball broadcasters. At one time it was a trio, and they're all in the Hall of Fame. Harry Carey, nobody sold the game better. For your folks in Atlanta, obviously the grandfather of Chip Carey and the father of the late Skip Carey, who was a dear friend. Jack Buck, Joe Buck's father, my mentor, was just an outstanding individual as well as being a great broadcaster. But Dan Kelly, the best hockey announcer who ever lived. Bob Starr, who was the best football announcer I ever heard. But back to the baseball, Joe Garagiola, who's in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a broadcaster. Growing up listening to those guys. We're playing wiffle ball one day. Harry Carey had this great home run call. There's a drive. It might be, it could be, it is a home run. I hit a home run in a wiffle ball game in Mrs. Bussey's yard, our next door neighbor. Probably traveled 20 feet, okay? But I called it like Harry Carey. I'm 9 years old. I called it like Harry Carey. And the guys I'm playing with were impressed. And they kind of put a bug in my ear. So I knew at 9 years old what I wanted to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So 9 years old, you still have a long way to go. You're just in elementary school. I mean, where do you go? For anybody out there that wants to be a sportscaster, how do they go about it? Is there a specific, I don't know, minor to broadcasting?
Yeah. A lot of the universities now, even the high schools have programs, have great equipment. I didn't know anything about Syracuse, which has the #1 program in the country. USC, Ohio University, UCLA. I teach also now at the University of Houston, and we're starting. This will be my 6th year. We have a program down there that teaches sports broadcasting, but I didn't know about any of those programs growing up as a kid. When I was getting ready to go to college, I knew about their football teams and their basketball teams. Growing up in St. Louis, 4 kids from my parents, I stayed in the city, went to St. Louis University. They had a campus radio station, KBIL at the time. It was on the third floor of a condemned building. I would do a record show from noon to 1. Back in those days, you had to have an, assumed name. I was Jerry Stevens. I don't know why I picked that name. Doing records from 12 to 1. I'm the only person in the station this one day. This is back before the internet. KMOX radio, arguably the greatest radio station in the country. At the time, it certainly was. The late Robert Hyland, the general manager, 3 times turned down the presidency of CBS Radio. He loved St. Louis. He loved KMOX. They called looking for somebody else, a senior by the name of Roger Downey, who was not there. Again, this is before the internet. They needed somebody to relay the football scores to the out-of-town broadcasters, the football Cardinal broadcasters, the University of Missouri football broadcasters, when they were out of town. Because you would have the big Western Union ticker tapes that would give you the scores. They needed somebody to do that. Well, Roger wasn't in the station that day. They asked me if I knew anything about football. I said, do I know anything about football? Yeah. I went in, they hired me, worked there for the football season. Everything worked great. They let me go after the football season. A month later, they hired me as a producer. There I met Buck and Kelly and Carey and Starr and the guys I mentioned earlier. And especially Jack Buck and Dan Kelly took a liking to me. They found out what I wanted to do. Jack would get me into Busch Stadium to practice on a Voice of Music tape recorder, 20-pound reel-to-reel Voice of Music tape recorder. Now, here's a TV station and a radio station right here. You could produce a movie right here. He would critique the tapes. Dan Kelly would do the same thing at the arena to practice hockey. That launched it. And to show you how crazy this business is, I was with the Red Sox for 14 years. When they won the World Series in 2004, first time in 86 years, the visiting broadcasters in the World Series have to go to an auxiliary booth. They don't go to the visiting radio booth. At that time, it went to ESPN radio. So they moved us down the line. I broadcast the 2004 World Series in the booth I used to practice in as a kid.
Wow.
It was coming full circle.
Wow. I guess those are things that we just don't think about when we're watching sports.
Yeah, right.
Wow. Okay. So what about the continuing education for a sports broadcaster? Is it just continuing, there's always games. So is it just you're constantly broadcasting, or is there education?
Here's the education. How do you build a house? What's the first thing you put down when you build a house?
The foundation.
Right. You need that foundation. The foundation is the rules, is the history, is the nuances. We came from I know you're only 27 years old, but I'm a little bit older than you. I came from the generation where we read the newspaper, where we listened to games on radio. We didn't have all that many games on television, but that was my education. I got a college degree. If in case the broadcast thing didn't work out, I got a college degree. I was going to find something else. But fortunately, the broadcast thing did work out. But you learn about the history, the rules, the players, because you never know. There's no script. There's no script. You're doing a game, and something might happen that jogs your memory about something you read about, or heard a broadcast about, or saw it on TV years ago. You relate to the audience. So you need that foundation. You should have a good vocabulary. That's part of being educated anyway, your vocabulary. But the terminology in sports, you need to learn that. And you need to, and again, listening and watching and not copying, but you're influenced by the broadcasters you hear. Mm-hmm. You learn phraseology, terminology, pacing. Pacing is so important. To me, I know we have the pitch clock now in baseball, which speeds things up. That's fine. But to me, the last the last thing of actual freelance creativity in broadcasting is baseball on the radio. TV pictures. If I'm doing a game on TV, I'm the play-by-play person. I'm putting captions on pictures. On radio, I'm setting the scene and I'm telling you the story. Okay. So I have to come up with that creativity, or any broadcaster that does radio.
Mhm.
Buck and Carey were, and Skip Carey, Ernie Harwell, Vince Scully was the best. That generation, those broadcasters could weave a story, and they could entertain and inform at the same time.
Mhm. Well, and the radio was used for that so much more.
Right.
You had all types of stories, children's stories, adult stories, and you tune in to the radio and listen to those things.
How many, and I don't want to put down this current generation. I'm an old guy. Get off my lawn. All right. Do that. But how many of today's college students, let's go right to college. How many of them know about Orson Welles and the War of the Worlds on radio instead of the Tom Cruise movie War of the Worlds?
Not many. And I know a lot of college age kids, because that's my second oldest. She's in college. So I see a lot of those kids around the house here, and no, they'd be like, what? You mean, like, is that on TikTok?
And the scandal that happened because of that broadcast, where people actually thought we were being invaded by aliens from Mars.
Mm-hmm.
And in this day and age would be hard to believe, but that was the impact of radio back in the 1930s.
Right. Oh yeah, it was pandemonium.
I wasn't born then, so stop it.
Well, I mean, no, I wasn't. You're right. All right. So JC Swinegruber, he is watching and he has a question. He said, curious if he ever called hockey games and had he met Don Cherry.
I started, my first play-by-play job was doing hockey. As a matter of fact, I'll drop a name on you.
Okay.
I lived in Gordie Howe's house when he came to Houston with his two sons. The first time a father and two sons played on the same team in a pro sports team. I lived in their house during the summer watching it for them when they went back to their cottage in Michigan. Yes, I did hockey for 6 years with the Houston Aeros of the World Hockey Association. I've never met Don Cherry. I've met a lot of his former players. What a character he is. They call him Grapes. Everybody gets a nickname in sports. His name's Cherry, so they call him Grapes. Figure it out. Hockey players are the best. I learned how to put, I can't tell you the all-time story. I learned how to play practical jokes on people because of hockey players. They're the best. They're the best. I've been lucky enough to do Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NFL football, big-time college football and basketball, hockey, boxing. Hockey players are the best.
Really? Why so?
They're most of them are from Canada. Okay. Grew up on farms, small cities. They're among the hardest workers, not to put any athlete down. No, I'm not going to do that. They're among the hardest workers. They just come from like a different background, and I haven't been around them lately because it's now so much big money. But from what I hear, they really haven't changed that much, which is good to hear.
Mm-hmm. So, speaking about money, I do have a question for you. With the college football, let's just call it arena, right? The college football sector, and for some players being able to have endorsements.
Right. NIL, right. Name, image, and likeness. Yes.
Yes. What is your opinion? Would you be able to share your opinion with us on that?
I think it's fair. Coaches for so many years would get extra deals because of the shoes they wear in basketball, make millions of dollars, and they could leave anytime they want. You as a parent, if Nick Saban came to you and you had a son who was good enough to play football at the University of Alabama, And let's say, okay, he really charmed you. He charmed your son. He goes to Alabama, and then a year later, Nick Saban decides, I want to go back to the NFL. That bond that sold you on, sure, they are student athletes, and the NCAA. I got that hammered in my head working at CBS. They don't say NCAA, it's NCAA. The NCAA says you must call them student athletes. Okay. And yeah, they should be students first, but believe me, back in the day, I knew of an All-American football player from a major university in the Midwest who never attended class and became an All-American football player.
Hmm.
So a lot of people with the talent, get by in school because they know they're going to go to the NFL or to the NBA. But so if that coach is going to leave and make money and the school's making money, if they start selling that's how it came about. Danny Manning from the University of Kansas, a basketball player, they made a video game and they put him and his teammates in there, and he sued, and that's how we got the NIL now, name, image, and likeness, where players are being paid. I would like to see the NCAA make it a little more equitable, because some of the athletes who aren't getting the money from the NIL, they're struggling. They can't hold a job during the season. They can't go out and buy a pizza on a Friday night if they want. So I'd like to see the NCAA do a little something to make it a little more equitable. But I have no problem with and especially the athletes who will share their NIL money with their teammates.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was a thing.
Some of them do, some of them don't.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that opinion. That has been something that, I was thinking about, especially, football is very big here in the Southeast.
Yeah.
So, and we have UGA.
I'm from Texas. We play a little football down there too.
Right. So, the curious pondering of someone who is not in the sports world is just the assumption that these kids are making millions and millions of dollars and they're only 18, 19, 20 years old. There's a lot of silly things you could spend that money on.
All right, to go back to the dark ages, I am the broadcaster for the Houston Oilers. All right. Mm-hmm. I'm on a charter going to a preseason game. I won't mention the athlete except to say it was not Earl Campbell. A lot of your audience watching will know the great Earl Campbell. It was not Earl. There was another player on the flight. They were going around giving out envelopes with meal money. Okay. Because it's a preseason game. Back in those days, they didn't have the organization they do now where the team meets for a meal, which they would do during the regular season, but not during the preseason. So this athlete opens up the envelope. He says, man, this is the least amount of money I've ever received in an envelope. Because back in those days, there were star players who were getting money under the table. There used to be the $100 handshake for the big time football programs. A member of the alumni would come in after a big win, shake hands with an athlete, and in that hand would be a $100 bill. Mm-hmm. I know of, in the old Southwest Conference, I know of a player who got a Trans Am from one school, Pontiac Trans Am, decided to go to another school. And he said, if you want to turn me in, but I'm keeping the car. And if I get in trouble, I'm spilling the beans on you. They said, drive safely. There was, it's not as bad now. I don't think today you can get away with hardly anything. There's never going to be a perfect solution to people who will cut corners and do things to violate the rules. You're never going to have a perfect situation, mm-hmm. but it is nowhere near the Wild West that it was back in the day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's interesting. Well, thank you, man. You said you were full of stories in the green room when we were talking.
Not my first rodeo.
Oh, wow. Okay. That really gives it a different perspective as far as just personally when we're thinking about it, because, it's so hard to decipher what is a real story and what's actually going on. So if we just hear things from our local news or national news, it's like it's always inflated, and it's like, okay, where's the real stuff here?
Where's the accuracy? Okay, now you've opened up a wound. Where's accuracy today? And I'm just kidding with you. I don't think we have the standards today in media that we had in the past. Again, here goes the old guy. Get off my lawn. People are rushed. Okay, people are rushed into positions who may not be ready, and I think the standards that some networks, some stations have put forth are not what happened for your generation and my generation. I mean, you've worked in movies, you've worked in stand-up comedy, you've done a lot. You're doing this show. You walked through certain things and paid the price along the way to get where you are now.
Yes.
You just didn't walk in and okay, here's my show, here I'm going. No, you had to learn along the way. And I'll give you another example. Again, I'm a broadcaster for the Oilers. They make a trade to get a defensive back. I'm the sports director at KTRH Radio in Houston at the time, 50,000 watt radio station. This football player's wife calls me and says, look, I want to get into television. Can I work at your station for 3 weeks and get a little experience, and then I'll be ready for TV? I said, no. I said, 50,000 radio station. We have a reputation as the biggest operation and the best sports operation in the Southwest. No, I'm not going to bring somebody in and think that they can, just all of a sudden they're going to be a star. No, we were professional. And if you were good enough and you were dedicated and you wanted to be in the business and we had an opening for you, I'd consider it. But to tell me for 3 weeks and then I'm going to go to TV, see you later.
Yeah. Wow.
Have a little respect for those in the business. That should have been my message to her.
Well, absolutely. And you're so correct. I think in so many things, not only in the entertainment world, where you have to work your way up and you have to do your time, so to say, that she wouldn't get respect of her fellow castmates, even if it worked that way.
Right.
So, in the voice, you can hear so much emotion. Has there been a time where you were actively broadcasting and something made you nervous?
My very first broadcast, I was a producer at KMOX Radio. I had never been on the air other than doing that little record show at the campus radio station, again, on the 3rd floor of a condemned building. I'm lucky I'm still here because we had an earthquake one time in St. Louis, and that thing was...
Oh, no.
Yeah, and lived through that. It was funny because the person following me was pulling records. This back in the dark ages, the disc. The thing's shaking. All of a sudden, he throws those records in the air and went running out of the building.
Oh, my gosh.
So, okay, so now I've got the job. I am hired to be the play-by-play announcer for the Houston Aeros, the new hockey league starting. I am hired 3 days before the start of the season. 3 days before the start of the season, I'm hired. Okay. So now I'm told that I have beaten out the former play-by-play announcer for the Houston Apollos, which was a minor league hockey team for the great Montreal Canadiens, the number 1 team in the NHL. I'm told that this guy was a play-by-play announcer, but I have the job. So I'm nervous, okay? My first broadcast. And I'll tell you a little secret. I don't drink. I drank in college because of peer pressure. You're supposed to drink. But I have the palate of a 9-year-old. I just don't like the taste. I'd rather waste it on chocolate and, ice cream and whatever. So I don't like the taste. I have nothing against drinking, nothing whatsoever. I just don't like the taste. So before that broadcast, there was a get-together at this public relations firm that was representing the team. So I had a little bit of a scotch and water. So now we're doing the broadcast. And I had not trained my voice. 5 minutes into my first broadcast, okay, Now, the guy who allegedly was the play-by-play announcer for the Apollos of the Montreal Canadian system was a disc jockey on a beautiful music station in Houston. And he had one of these voices where he would talk to you and tell you everything is right in the world. So now I'm doing the play-by-play. 5 minutes into my first game, I lose my voice. I point to him. I'm over here, trying to cough and get my voice back. And I hear in my headset, Larry Hale has the ball. The puck, buddy, has the ball. And with the stick, he hits it off the wall. So I knew the guy was a fraud. He was allegedly, he's my broadcast partner. He never did a hockey game in his life. So from that point forward, I never looked back. I never looked back. And they fired him midway through the season because he had no clue. But I think that was the last time I was nervous. The other time I was nervous, I do public speaking and MC dinners, and I had to do a dinner where I had 200 Catholic priests in the audience. So that was a little bit intimidating, but nah.
Are you Catholic?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I got a mass confession there. How much time you got there, fathers?
Wow. Now, I mean, I'm Catholic as well, so I feel like I can say this. That's kind of a boozy bunch.
Yeah. What was that night? Yeah. There was a little wine going that night.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That would make me nervous too. Your voice just completely goes out and your partner has no clue. And he literally said that.
But you think, yeah, those were his words. But I'll never forget those words. But he had set himself up that he was this veteran broadcaster. Okay. And that's when I get back to the terminology. It's not a ball, it's a puck. And I kidded with you earlier about being a soccer mom. And I think one of the exchanges I gave you in an email and said it's a pitch, it's not a field. It's the score is not 1-0, it's 1-0. I did 1 year in the North American Soccer League of broadcasting. Since watching Ted Lasso, I've kind of become a soccer fan. But before that, if they told me I had 6 months to live, I'd go back and do soccer because I didn't think that season would ever end.
Soccer is very fast moving.
When I was in college, St. Louis University, they were among the best soccer teams in the country. Now, if I was a soccer player, hey, put me in at goal. You guys go run, okay? I'll wait for you down here.
I mean, okay, so my son is obsessed with soccer. So we have been watching soccer, and the broadcasts, a lot of them are in Spanish. So to me, it's goal.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so fast. How do you keep up with it?
Well, I mean, let's take soccer, put it aside for a second with baseball, okay? Because I'll get to that in a minute. But let's go with football, basketball, and hockey. They're all controlled by a clock, and there will be a rhythm for teams that play within a clock. When I was doing the Oilers broadcast, the Buffalo Bills were a no-huddle offense with Jim Kelly at quarterback, and the Cincinnati Bengals with Boomer Esiason at quarterback. No huddle, hurry up offense. So you have the Oilers on one side where you can set up Hill left, Gibbons right, Williams tight on the left, backs are split. You can set it up that way. When Buffalo or Cincinnati came to the line, you just say it's 2nd down and 7 from the 23-yard line. You didn't have time to set that all up. You adjust because of the flow and the pace. In hockey, when I was doing hockey, the Quebec Nordiques, they were flying all over the place. The Winnipeg Jets, they had a bunch of European players flying all over the place. Other teams would dump it in. You have different styles there. Texas, University of Texas basketball, they were run and gun, whereas another team would come down and set it up. So you have different paces there. In baseball, you could have a pitcher like Mark Burley of the White Sox who worked, give me the ball, let's go, we're in a hurry. Mm-hmm. He worked like that. Or you could have somebody like Daisuke Matsuzaka. A lot of the Asian pitchers take forever, but now they have the pitch clock, so it's changed now. That's what I say about baseball. You have creativity there. Same thing in soccer, because there's not that much scoring, or there shouldn't be normally, and you've got that time to fill, and you can pick out the players because you're in such a large area watching the pitch, if you will, and you can set things up. But hockey is so fast, and the same with those teams, like in football that operate with no huddle, or in basketball that run and gun. You learn the pacing, and you it becomes sort of a second nature, really.
Now, out of all of the types of sports that you just mentioned, was there any of them that took you longer to understand every little nuance of it?
Baseball.
Really?
Yeah, they say about men in America, men know everything about sex and baseball, and neither one is true. Okay, you keep learning. Baseball. There are so many nuances about baseball. People think. I'll give you an example. I teach online at the University of Houston, and I was really happy with the students I had. So they begged me one day while the Astros were in the playoffs one semester, can we watch the game while the game is going on? I fixed it on the computer where they could watch the game, and I'd have the volume down and I talk them through it. Two batters into the game, and they were both retired. I think it was the White Sox were in the playoffs at that time against the Astros. And two batters in, the pitching coach comes out to visit with the pitcher. Now, he has gotten 2 outs. He has not been in real trouble. So they're saying, why did he come out there? And I'm trying to figure out. And I finally said, you know what? I think he was tipping his pitches. That's the only thing I could think of, because he's not hurt. The trainer didn't come out with them. Then you find out after the game, yeah, he was tipping his pitches. That's why the pitching coach came out. It takes you time to learn that, okay? It takes you time to learn to decipher a curveball from a slider, and how to watch the catcher's glove, the catcher's mitt, how he's going to frame pitches and take pitches if it's a slider or a curveball. You learn about when the hit and run is on, little things like that. And there is so much to baseball. It's my favorite sport. I think they're killing it right now, to be honest with you. It's the one I got into last. It's the hardest to get into, but if you're around it every day, and I spent a lot of time with scouts eating dinner up in the press box and listening to coaches or listening to managers and talking with people. That's the great thing about baseball. You have so much time because you're there every day to build up relationships, to talk about it, and to really get a feel for it. And not to put down the other sports, because, okay, you can talk about the 2-deep zone in football, or, the safety blitz or whatever. Baseball just seems to take a little longer to understand everything.
Interesting. So, all right. I don't know very much about baseball. What does tipping the pitchers mean?
Okay. All right. A little demonstration for you here. All right.
Okay.
All right. So that's not a good shot. Hold on. All right. Tipping pitches means the batter can decipher what's coming, if it's going to be a fastball or if it's going to be a breaking pitch. All right. So some pitchers, imagine my hand is my glove. If the glove is wide like that, it may mean that he's digging in there to throw like a split finger fastball or a curveball. And when he throws the fastball, the glove is closed more. So, he's going to come with the heat. So there were players, there were coaches who can decipher that. Now, the Astros took it too far several years ago. A lot of, I'm sure you even not to put you down, but I'm sure you remember the scandal with the Astros and the cheating and the
Yes.
all that. They took it too far, banging on trash cans, using electronics to decipher different pitches and what have you. But the old time baseball folks, if a guy has a routine, every time he throws a fastball, he's going to wipe his chest. Just little things where they pick out things like that. But it's mostly the position of the glove. If it's open or if it's closed, it will tell you. Unless the glove is closed or open all the time, and then you have no clue. If it's a breaking ball and it's open, and it's a fastball and it's open, you have no clue. But certain pitchers will change things based on the pitch they're going to throw.
So I got to ask you, I mean, today we have so many different camera angles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But take me back to when a while ago when they didn't have all these different camera angles. Did you guys use binoculars to see these little things, or how did you see
No.
these things?
The only thing we would use binoculars for is in football. If you were in a booth at an angle and you couldn't see one end zone when they're in within scoring range, so you'd use binoculars there. Or if somebody's hurt in baseball, we'll use it. But now you're right, because there's so many cameras now, you really don't need the binoculars. Have you ever heard of the shot heard round the world?
Yes.
Bobby Thompson's home run, 1951. The Giants win the pennant. That was at the Polo Grounds. And the Polo Grounds, the offices of the then New York Giants, now San Francisco Giants, were in center field, more than 500 feet away from home plate. And there was a scoreboard out there, okay? And off to the side of the scoreboard was a light. They had somebody in their office with a telescope, okay? If it was a fastball, he'd turn on the light. If it was going to be a breaking ball, he would not turn on the light. And Bobby Thompson's home run, the shot heard around the world, the story goes, he knew what was coming.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, you'd have to be able to communicate some way.
Which is illegal. For example, I'll tell you how the Red Sox used to cheat. I hope I don't get killed over this. They would have in their bullpen out in right center field. I don't know how they did it, if they had somebody in the stands with binoculars or what. I never found out. But as the bullpen pitchers leaned on the fence watching the game, if they put a towel on the fence, here comes a fastball. If the towel's not there. So they must have had somebody in the center field bleachers relaying to them. Now, this was done well before I got to the Red Sox, but I was told that story years ago. People find a way to cheat.
Wow. I mean, that's just crazy. Oh my God.
The trouble is the players police the games themselves. And I'm not advocating violence, but if they find you're cheating, that's when guys get one stuck in their ribs.
Wow. Okay, let's talk about violence for a second, because I had mentioned it before I brought you onto the broadcast this evening. And I said, I love watching hockey because they get into these great fights.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm a New Jersey girl, so Devils is my team. I love the Devils, and they are exactly their name. They're just mean, and they love to just beat on the other players. I know that's illegal, and that shouldn't be part of the game, right?
Well, it is part of hockey.
I love it, but okay, so it seems like when I go to a hockey game today, there's not as much of that as there used to be.
Right. They've cleaned it up. Back in my day, in the dark ages, we had what they call goons. Mm-hmm. They were there just for the fights. I was doing a game between the Houston Aeros and the Birmingham Bulls, and I'm always early wherever I go. I hate being late to a broadcast. I'm always early. So I get to the arena. I'm going upstairs to the press box, and here sitting in the press box is Gilles Bad News Bilodeau. Okay, so you can imagine what his job was. And Gilles, aren't you playing tonight? And he goes, bad tum, can't fight. So yeah. Now, are you familiar with Cherry Hill, New Jersey?
Yes.
Okay. I'm doing a game. The team that was in New York, and not to get sappy here for a second, you've reached a pinnacle when you can do a game at Madison Square Garden.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I had done the Arrows against the New York Blades. Okay. But the Blades, was it the Blades or was it the Philadelphia? I know it was the Philadelphia team. It was the Philadelphia team later on who moved to Cherry Hill, New Jersey. They couldn't make it in Philadelphia. So now there's a big brawl started by former NHL player Johnny McKenzie. Johnny Pie McKenzie is facing like a pie. He starts a brawl with 12 seconds to go. Now the two teams are staying in the same hotel because they had not moved from Philadelphia. So when they played home games, they had to stay in a hotel. They stayed in the one hotel in Cherry Hill that was acceptable. Now they stayed on the same floor at different ends, okay? And there was a policeman stationed in between.
I bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did you ever see the movie Slapshot?
No, I haven't seen the movie Slapshot, but I did want to ask you about that because you have been in movies.
Just my voice.
Okay, just your
Not
voice.
Too ugly for it.
So did you get to a point where you wanted to find an agent, or did they find you because they wanted the voice of Jerry Trupiano in the movie?
Get this. I had no clue any of this was happening. Okay. I guess I sound like a baseball announcer because the three movies were In the Bedroom. I told my mom, when I found out that my late mother, I says, I'm going to be in this, using my voice in this movie, In the Bedroom. She says, is that one of those porno movies? No. Turns out it was, Sissy Spacek, Tom Wilkerson. It was Marissa Tomei. It was nominated for an Academy Award. I'll take credit. That's okay. The other one was Mystic River, again, nominated for an Academy Award. The third one was Fever Pitch, which was not released. It escaped, that movie. It was awful. Anyway, Mystic River is set in the 1970s. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They took some of my broadcast from 2001 or 2000 and matched it with video from the 1970s Red Sox games. So I guess I sound like a baseball announcer, but the only one I got paid for was In the Bedroom. They stiffed me on the next two. Didn't get any payment.
But how did they?
Because the radio station says, well, those are our rights. It's our rights to the broadcast. We'll give it. But it was an independent company that did In the Bedroom. So we put up a squawk. I had an agent at the time, and we got. I got my. What was it? Last month I got my last royalty check. I cleared 37 cents.
That's awesome.
In the Bedroom is big in Europe on television. 37 cents. Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. All right.
Ho-hos. Now you can't even buy a ho-ho anymore with 30 cents.
That's not what I thought the answer was going to be. I mean, but it makes a lot of sense that production's just going to go out and find something that works for the movie because you've done so many different sports.
Because watching the movie, and I'm not blowing smoke about myself, but they were able to match what I was saying with Louis Tiant pitching, and he was pitching back in the 1970s.
Wow.
Magic of Hollywood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pictures right now. I had a friend, Jimmy Demerit, long time ago. Great golfer. When I met him, he was in his 80s. He appeared on I Love Lucy, an episode of I Love Lucy back in the day. And I said, I saw you on TV. He says, yeah, I'm between pictures now. This was in the 1980s.
You have something on your website here that I wanted to ask you about. The 5 tools. Should I read what you have on the website, or do you want?
We can talk about it. Sure.
Okay. Absolutely.
You're the boss.
All right. So what you have here really just resonates with me. The 5 tools in baseball, position players are judged on 5 tools. hitting with power, speed, defense, and arm strength. The 5 tools for play-by-play announcer to be judged on: you have knowledge, accuracy, credibility, versatility, and connection. Would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Knowledge is what I talked about earlier, building that foundation, know about the history, know about the teams that are involved, the rules, little subtleties, like I talked about the nuance of how a catcher with his mitt is framing pitches and catching pitches, how defenses are aligned, a jump that an outfielder might get. As far as accuracy, you got to tell the truth. Okay. Quick story there. First year doing hockey again. All right. None of our games that year were on television. One of our players was injured and sent back to Houston. And I would describe, when I'm calling the play-by-play, again, I was taught by the great Dan Kelly, he would describe a fight as it unfolded. So a fight is going on and I'm describing it, and the Houston player is getting the short end of the fight. Now we get back to Houston, and this one player who was injured comes up to me and says, "Hey, you can't tell our fans listening that our players are losing a fight." I said, "Yes, I can, because that's my credibility. That's my calling card, how accurate I am. If I'm saying how exciting the games are, if I'm saying that tickets are on sale, you should come down and see this team, if I'm doing commercials for somebody, you have to have credibility and believability." So yeah, I could say a guy's losing a fight because that's the accuracy. You've got to be honest. You can't be a homer. There are very few homers left in the business now. Give the other team credit. And if your team's playing bad, you got to say it. You don't have to take cheap shots, but you have to be honest. Credibility, it dovetails right with accuracy. You've got to be believable. You have to be believable and build up credibility. Versatility. Well, I mean, again, I did all those sports. There's versatility there, but then there's people who drop by the booth, people from politics, people from show business, and you know, you got to be able to hold on to it or handle a conversation. You've got to be, and if it's a rain delay, you have to fill time. If somebody is injured and it's taking a long time, you have to fill time. You have to be versatile. You can't be one dimensional. And as far as connectivity, you got to connect with an audience. You have to have that ability, that connection with the audience. They have to accept you. You have to be able to give the other 4 things that I mentioned to have that connectivity. They invite you into their lives. And really it's the team you're covering, because nobody tunes in. I'm the only one that tunes in for a broadcast, because you mentioned my buddies earlier, Jim Nance and Joe Buck. I'm the only knucklehead that will tune in for a broadcast, because those are 2 of my best friends and I want to hear them. But you know, if he was still alive and I was going into LA, you'd have to listen to Vince Scully or Jack Buck or Harry Carey. But for most of us, it's about the team. They're not listening to hear Jerry Trupiano. They want to know what the Red Sox are doing, or the Expos are doing, or the Astros are doing. And because, believe me, you could be walking into the ballpark and get run over by a butane truck, and they're not going to cancel the game. They're going to play the game. So, you take that mindset. But if you do it long enough, if you do it well enough, you build that connection.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. You kind of answered it already, but the connection piece, that seems to be also embedded within the personality, the charisma of the announcer. So it's kind of a make it or break it, isn't it? I mean, like if you're just completely deadpan, monotone, nobody wants to listen to you, you don't have a job in broadcasting.
Right. It's entertainment, and it's informing it at the same time. I like to have a sense of humor. I like to laugh. There was a night that they were playing in, the Red Sox were playing in Baltimore. I know, in Seattle. And at the end of games in Seattle, all these seagulls or whatever seemed to invade the ballpark and light somewhere on the field. Well, the Red Sox that night made 5 errors. And there's like 6 seagulls out there. And I says, somebody better get those seagulls and give them some gloves the way the Red Sox are feeling tonight. And then you mentioned being Catholic in Baltimore along the concourse outside of Camden Yards. Boog Powell, a former player for the Orioles, has this barbecue stand. And one night his barbecue stand catches fire, and there's all this white billowing smoke. And I said on the air, either Boog Powell's barbecue stand is on fire, or we have a new pope.
Right.
So you something like that, just to lighten the mood and to entertain a little. The 2 guys that I were closest with, who were mentors, I mentioned earlier, Dan Kelly and Jack Buck. Really, and Buck, to me, Jack had a secret wish one time to substitute for Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show. And Jack had this ability, and he was a great broadcaster, but he was 10 times a better person. Great individual, Purple Heart winner. He had a drive to see if he could always, he liked to talk to people that were hard to get along with. There was a football player back for the Dallas Cowboys in the day, Dwayne Thomas, who was a big druggie. And Jack went up to him, and he did a lot of the Cowboy games back in those days on CBS. And he went to Mel Renfro, a player on the Cowboys. He says, introduce me to Dwayne Thomas. I want to talk to him. And Mel Renfro taught him, says, Jack, don't waste your time. Nobody can talk to him. But Jack liked that ability. They would always, if he was on the road, and somebody like when Frank Sinatra came in, or Eleanor Roosevelt, or Bob Hope, they would bring Jack back off the road and have him interview those folks. He was a great interviewer. And one of the best nights I had, while we were waiting for him to come back off the road and interview Bob Hope, I got to spend about an hour and 10 minutes with Bob Hope, just sitting with him until Jack got there. And that really helped me and helped my confidence. If I could sit down with Bob Hope,
right,
you get the feeling you could talk to anybody. And he was very gracious. It was a great night. I learned from the best. I have been so lucky, so very lucky.
So what is in your future? What do you want to do now, Jerry?
I'm a workaholic. I'm not working enough. The Red Sox, after they were sold, after my 14th year, they brought in a guy to replace me. They brought in 2 guys to replace me, actually. And that's not ego, but each of the new owners had a guy they wanted to bring in. And then I was going to go to Florida. And then the one guy that didn't work out here, they got him the job in Florida. So I've been freelancing and looking at, I would love to do, it's never going to happen again. But I would love to go back and do some broadcast. But I'm thinking about doing something like you're doing here. I've made contact with a fellow I used to have in my sports department in Houston, and we're toying with an idea of coming up with something not exactly what you're doing. I'm not going to be your rival. I can't beat you. You're the best. But something like that. Yeah, I need to stay busy. Because I'm a workaholic.
Well, I absolutely understand that. So am I.
Look who I'm talking to. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the sportsmic.com.
Well, that's the website I started, kind of an interactive website. It's almost like a living resume, because I have highlights on there from baseball, football, basketball, hockey. I was lucky enough to be picked by the Major League Baseball Network for one of the top 25 calls of all time, the David Ortiz home run in the American League Championship Series in Game 4, when it looked like the Yankees were going to sweep that series. And that started the Red Sox in the greatest comeback ever in baseball. Had never been done before, where a team was in a 3-0 hole in a playoff series, then won the next 4. And then they went on to sweep the Cardinals in the World Series in 4 straight games. But it was the Ortiz home run in that game that got me on that list. I would like to go back and do some play-by-play somewhere, anywhere. That would be a goal, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I'm trying to find some other things, trying to be creative because it's in my blood. And again, I, I, I just want to work. I just want to work. I mean, the teaching is fun and that's nice. I teach at a liberal arts college here and 2 classes down at the University of Houston online. And that's been a lot of fun. I had a student this past 2 semesters in Houston, and she is going to be a superstar in this business. And there's another one who's going to be a lawyer, but she should stick in the business too. So it's good to see the next generation coming along.
Can you give us their names so we could watch out for them?
I don't know if I should because I don't know. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Maybe another time.
Maybe another time.
So besides the sportsmike.com, how else can people follow you and keep up with you?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I get into a lot of arguments on Twitter. As you can tell, I've got some opinions. Not a lot of arguments, but I mean, if you've been around it and you see something that's wrong, you comment on it. I probably should stay away from that. But yeah, I got a website. I got an email address in my website. I don't get much mail there. Give me just a second. I'll find it. Or if you're quicker than I am.
Yeah, it is. It's an interesting email address. I've never heard of it before, but it is Troop1. So let's just spell it JERRTRUP1
Yeah.
at zohomail.com. That's ZOHOMAIL.com.
Yeah, they can reach me there.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have tonight, Jerry. I'd love to have you on the show again. This was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun anytime. Sometimes we got to just sit and talk movies or TV. You probably don't have as much time with 5 children.
I don't. You know what? I have to say I am the worst television episodic watcher ever because there's some cookie cutters out there. And when you watch a new show, a lot of times it will be based on rhythm, the same type of characters, but different characters. So there's a lot of new shows that have great sizzle trailers and you're expecting them to just come out the gates and hit it hard. And I watched the first 10 minutes and I'm like, no, I can't watch this. I know how this episode's going to end. It's the same. But then there are some wonderful ones like Yellowstone I really got into that had beautiful casting. And, of course, the scenery and everything was wonderful in that. So, yes, there are some that I get to.
You got to try Ted Lasso. I was surprised.
Okay.
I mean, you've got a soccer player in your family. You got to check it out. I was surprised.
All right. I'll check it out. Well, thank you, Jerry. We'll see you again soon.
All right. All the best.
All right. Bye-bye. Oh my goodness, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I love seeing the eyeballs in the corner because it gives me little numbers every once in a while. So I know that you're there and I love the questions and the likes. They go a long way. Everybody, we are blessed. You are blessed. Mwah. I love you and I will see you again real soon with another great show. Take care. All right.